You've lived and died thousands of lifetimes since 20 years ago. But if you're still stuck in the same rut you were in 20 years ago, whoa. But at any rate, he wanted me to meet a beautiful woman that he's very fond of, and I was delighted to meet her. She's just a spectacularly lovely being. But he got talking about the old times and reunions and things like that. I got to tell you, I was not comfortable in grammar school. I was not comfortable in high school. I was not comfortable in college. I would certainly not be comfortable at a reunion. I never felt particularly part of things. I didn't quite get it. I wasn't good at gossip even in 8th grade when it was like the thing to do. Well, he went on to speak, and I know he meant it with all, sort of great humor. Apparently, at this reunion, which now also has to be like 20 years ago, a mutual fellow that we know reported back to the guy who's now sitting in my living room. So that guy could 20 years later report it to me. And it was so hurtful that I had to spend like the next day shaking it off. Apparently, 20 years ago, I don't think I had opened my stores yet in New Jersey. No, I'm quite sure I had not. Maybe so, maybe it doesn't matter. But I had already written and published a book called The Universal Laws. It's called Spiritual Laws, a handbook to higher truth. I had already spoken across the country on angels and their power, and but none of this sort of out of like an odd duck. It's just apparently at this reunion, he's the guy in question's telling me he's selling insurance. What do you do, Elaine? Well, I now lecture. At the time, maybe I had just given a lecture on angels. I don't know. I'm a writer. I'm sure, knowing me, there was no horn tooting. If anything, I was uncomfortable disclosing even the minimum. What came back to me in my own living room was, oh man, he thought you were really off the wall. You talked to angels. This whole thing had grown into such a distorted rumor that it's, in the old days, it would have been enough to shut me down for, honestly, a few years. That's how timid I have been in the past. Now, I'm like, this is a story for global radio, so that we can all look at how harmful it is when someone decides to talk about us. It's not for anybody else to do. And yes, it did cause me, yet again, a sense of piercing. Like, I'm not talking about you. Go do what you want to do. If you tell me you're a mass murderer, have a great time. I don't have anything about that. But here, someone who has the great gift of communing and then being vulnerable enough to share so gently, yeah, I not only can I talk to them, I've seen them. They're a living, breathing kingdom. And my sense is, what's wrong with the rest of the tribe that they can't do that? That they are so steeped in antiquity and false programming and narrow judgment. So it was very, very interesting. And my friend and the girlfriend sitting in my living room, I'm sure I did not miss a beat. I was gracious, carried on the conversation. But sometimes you carry on the conversation simply because there was no point in saying, wait a second, time out. It wasn't appropriate. And that's learning discernment about when to speak up and when to shut up. Neither of the people in my living room would have understood what I was trying to say. So hopefully some of you out there today get it, that watch your words. They're painful, they're hurtful, and most oftentimes they're completely inaccurate. And I think people speak because, I don't know, maybe you're, I don't know what the problem is. Stop speaking. Just stop speaking. Except you may call in to speak to me today. That you may do. I'll tell you, human beings. I know we're all in this muddle of a system called human system. It's just so not what you are. And I am so wanting to hold up a lantern so you can see who the heck you are and embrace it. As I said in that humble book, Spiritual Law, I think my favorite one-liner in the whole book is, you are God in drag. And if I had the guts to put that in black and white in 1994, when it was still the dark ages, I think it's time for us all to embrace it and become what we are. So there we have it. That's my little little angst note of the day. All right, this is a lovely thing that I really want you to think about. As a matter of fact, I want you to get a pencil and write it down, because we've talked about it. You've known about it. I've talked about it. All right, here it is. What you've done in thought, you've already done. Write it down. What you've done in thought, you've already done. So I need you to be very cognizant of your thoughts, because a lot of our thoughts are just like wild in the streets, and they're off kilter, mean-spirited, and you need to be in charge of that if you would like to get to that point where you can really embrace who you are, which is this sense of the great presence in drag known as you, Susie, Marianne, Alice, whomever. But you can't get there without the discipline. You need the discipline. You need the step-by-step following things like what you've done in thought, you've already done. I remember years ago, Wayne Dyer, he and his family were close friends of mine. For those of you who know who he is, good. For those of you who don't, he's passed on, but he was a very big spokesperson in the whole world of New Thought. And I remember standing in his kitchen one day, and he was talking about divorce. And he said, you know, for the person who's just thinking maybe they should get a divorce, they're already divorced. So he actually had tapped into this ancient thinking. Your thoughts are things. And there we have it. And I have a caller on the line. Hi there.
Hi, it's Sydney from New Jersey.
Hello, Miss Sydney. Nice to hear from you.
Hi. I love this subject. People don't realize how negative they are. We have a common phrase, don't forget to blah, blah, blah.
Uh-huh.
Well, why isn't this phrase, remember to blah, blah, blah?
That's right. There it is. It's that simple. It's all backward.
It's backwards, and it's not reinforcing what we want. You're saying the word forget,
mm-hmm.
and you want the person to remember. So we're not helping our cause.
It's that simple, Sydney. You're correct, and it's because we've become very careless with our words. I don't know whether we think we have to get it all out there, but it becomes like this verbal vomit. It's like enough already. And I have to say, I think some of the talk shows contributed to this.
Well, we're so inundated by media, and so we're taught media. Mm-hmm. I have a quote in one of my collages, and it says, if you can't improve upon the silence, don't say anything.
And there it is. That is a beautiful quote. That is just so true. If you can't improve upon the silence, don't say anything. And the world is so noisome right now. It's distracting.
Well, people are uncomfortable to be in silence.
Well,
too.
Because they've lost their sense of centeredness in the silence with a capital S. Because I'm convinced silence is another name for God.
Yes. And here, the media, which diminishes us. You know, there's someone said once that the word television really is this box telling us a vision, telling us a story. Somebody said, tell your own story, read a book, write something, have a conversation, take a walk.
That is the truth. Yeah. Yeah.
You get mesmerized by this storytelling, which has value. There's a lot of valuable things in the media, as well as those that just eat up our time and energy and whatever. But talking about creation, the creative process does start in your mind. I mean, and if I'm not I don't know the Bible well, but if they say God spoke the world into being, that's pretty powerful stuff, you know? And, you know, to read these books about creating or prayer and whatnot, so many people say, oh, I'd love a red sports car. And then they diminish it by saying, but I'll never afford it.
That's right. That's right.
You know, we take it away.
Absolutely. As quickly as they speak it, they abort it.
Yeah, so things like a vision board, a collage, and all this positive, you know, creating a positive thing for ourselves, or having a positive mantra. And to your point, if you start to think of something negative, or you're getting caught in some whirlwind, to have something to replace it with, like a prayer or your favorite mantra, or, you know, whatever, to fill in that space with something that's precious, valuable.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's really learning honesty within ourself for ourself, and then that extending that authenticity into their other selves, their outer selves. As I'm honest within myself, it radiates to you, Sydney, and to the work I'm doing, and to the street I'm walking upon. So it's quite a simple process, but because we're so unaware, it's not happening for us because it's too disjointed, it's too fragmented.
Absolutely. So if you started to think the thought, what would I be thinking about if people could hear what I was saying, or read in the bubble above my head? What would it? How would you would be a better steward of what was happening, right?
Yeah.
And you're right. The vibe, your vibe, when people are happy at what they're doing and they're joyful and they're thinking loving thoughts and positive and whatever, your vibe changes. So then when I come into your presence, you have this glow and this vibe. So then that affects me, and I can be lifted up by that, right? Energized. They say that dolphins, when they send out a beam of sonar so that bounce off their buddy, when the pattern comes back from their buddy, if it's sad, they bounce. Then they send out another pattern that changes sad. So they're a community that wants to keep aligning and uplifting. And we have that ability with our words and actions, but we get lazy. And we've been taught otherwise by the media.
Well, it's been well programmed even before the media. I mean, you know, we're in the Kali cycle, which is the cycle of destruction, and it's just about over. But that's what's happened. These 1,000 or so years of really down to the bottom. So, you know, it just has to play out, and it is playing out.
You're right.
But those of us who can hold the candle, if you will, or the lantern, just hold it up high enough so that it drip by drip, another person will see it and have that little bit of hope, really as the dolphins do. Just send out that little signal, and then another one sends out that little signal. It will change. We'll move out of this age sooner or later. And so we just keep doing diligently with awareness as it's changing. So it's really kind of goes back to live in the moment, be what you're supposed to be. You know, if ever there was a time for us to learn to really be the God we are, it's now. It's when we're down and out and in the jail of our thoughts. You know, it's kind of like a